have you heard the term autophagy but wasn't really sure what it meant? Do you think it's possible to fast for 5 days while still eating? Well, you're going to learn all about this and more on today's show. We have Dr. Joseph Antoun. He's the CEO of L Nutra. His goal is to push the boundaries of longevity science and make extended health span accessible to all. We really enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Antoun. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. And please leave a review. It helps others find the podcast in the search algorithms. And without further ado, here's our interview with Dr. Joseph Antoun. Dr. Antoun, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Dr. Rob and Dr. Bass. I'm really happy to be with both of you, three doctors in this instance, but hopefully we're going to change somebody's life today.
If you could tell us a little bit about how you got interested in nutrition and specifically fasting.
Went to med school first, wanted to be a doctor like both of you, and the goal was to cure patients, right? We always think a doctor cures diseases, but unfortunately the diseases we're dealing with these days are chronic diseases that simple medicine or drugs is shying off a true cure. And I wanted to be a cardiologist and just learn pretty fast doing my rotations in the hospital that basically we're meeting people after they're sick. So we were practicing sick care, and we were giving them 4, 5, 6 pills to subscribe them for the rest of their lives on those pills. I wasn't reversing blood pressure. I wasn't reversing diabetes. I wasn't reversing cholesterol. I was just managing numbers, and my patients would still add more medications as they get older, and they will never get a cure. So I decided to just leave that system. And first I was inspired to do public policy and focus on health policy and public health. So did my health policy studies at Harvard, Hopkins. I did public health, and I wanted to advocate for a preventive healthcare system. And this is what I did actually, and consulted with many ministries of health around the world about prevention. But prevention today is a set of education and awareness that people on average know. Eat healthy, don't smoke, exercise. Like there's a lot of it that's became now not new knowledge, but it's just difficult to apply. And people love to consume, right? The success of the drug industry is because people love to consume and have a shortcut. So I decided to go and develop a consumable product for prevention and longevity. And I had no idea what that would be, but that was my goal. And so I joined pharma first to learn how to develop and launch products. I joined Lilly for 6 years, and then left and established my own consulting company. And my goal was to look for new technologies that people can consume to stay healthier longer. That was for me the goal of what a true healthcare system should be. And then one event changed my life. Actually, I just learned about how important is the biological age of the body to as a true unit of measurement. I personally believe the true unit of measurement of health is the age of your body. And why is that so? Because 90% of us now die out of 4 diseases: cardiovascular, cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, and they're all age-related. You don't get Alzheimer's at age 25, even if you have the ApoE gene. You're not going to get your first heart attack at age 30, and you're not going to get most of your diabetes type 2 at age 27. So they're age-related, right? As the cells get older, we start losing our muscle, our metabolism gets slower, blood sugar increases, then we become diabetic. As the brain gets older, we get Alzheimer's and dementia. As we get older, there's enough time for the plaques to clog the heart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you treat aging, that was my biggest aha moment, and the first aha moment in life, if you want, is if you treat aging or you decelerate the age of your body, you create a delta between how old are you and how old from the inside your inner age is. That delta is pure, almost pure healthy years of life that you're gifting your patient or your consumer, et cetera, because it's happening before they touch the first chronic disease. So a true healthcare system should measure the age of the body and should find ways to slow down aging. And I was like, okay, first question, how to slow down aging? I didn't know in medicine, with my MDs and PhDs and math, I didn't know anything about how to slow aging.
We hope you've been enjoying the episode so far, and it will resume shortly. We would just like to ask you to subscribe, like, and share with your friends and family. Thank you, and back to the episode.
And I started traveling around the world, all the way from Singapore to San Francisco, crossing Europe, every aging lab I went to. And they were all, there's some work on rapamycin, some work on metformin, some work on rapalogs, etc. But all these thought leading aging researchers, they were pointing at Dr. Valter Longo at USC, saying in awaiting having a pill for aging, there's actually a nutrition that can reverse the bioage of the body in a more natural way. And it was, what is that? And they said it's the fasting mimicking diet. It's food that you can consume for 5 days. Your body doesn't know you're eating, so you're fasting with food for 5 days, and fasting puts certain type of pressure on the cells to rejuvenate and get biologically younger. So it was the first anti-aging or pro-longevity intervention. I went to meet with Dr. Longo, and we hit it fast, and I decided to leave everything and join him into growing this first nutri-technology company we call L-Nutra, longevity through nutrition, L-Nutra. And the core product is a food and nutrition product. We call it ProLon. On a commercial level, there's a 5-day fasting mimicking nutrition to reverse the bioage of the body. We can talk about multiple other benefits, but that's what brought me all the way from medicine to nutrition. Is aging is the mother of all disease. Treat aging, you help people live healthy long. The first way, natural way to treat aging was through the fasting mimicking diet.
Can you tell us more about, describe the audience that they do not know about fasting mimicking diet and more in detail? I know you guys have different products for different disease. Can you go a little more in detail so sort of they understand what it is all about?
Yeah. And so it took us 23 years in research, actually, and we brought together 18 universities. Stanford, who's doing our fasting mimicking diet research on Crohn's, and USC, that's doing the fasting mimicking diet research on cancer, and University of Miami and ulcerative colitis, and then we have diabetes and all major big chronic health conditions. We brought these 18 universities together and started doing clinical trials on nutrition. And why the FMD? Let me use the acronym FMD for fasting mimicking diet. Why the FMD? Because when we started studying fasting in the late 90s, early 2000s, we started looking what happens to the body on like first hours of fasting, then second hours, all the way day 1, day 2, day 3. We were very curious to understand what happens to the body, how the body reacts to fasting or defends itself. What we learned is that, and I always give the example of the analogy, if you want. If you have a company and say you need $1 million to run your company, it's the same way you have a body and you need, say, 2,000 calories to, let's say you're a little bit on the bigger side, and you need 2,000 calories per day to nourish that body. So if you need $1 million, you're the CEO, you're responsible, and suddenly there's no $1 million, you're fasting, right? There's no revenues. What are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, I'll go. I have money in the bank. I have checking account that I can use easily. The body, the first few hours, first day of fasting, first few hours goes to glycogen. It's a very easy reserve to tap into. Then the longer you go as a CEO without the money, then you're going to say, I'm going to tap into my savings accounts now. The body goes and taps into fat. Fat is our savings account. And you break down fat into ketones so that you nourish the brain and the other parts of the body. Now, if you're depleting further your bank, you're going to say, I'm going to ask the bank for a loan, or I'm going to start using my credit cards. And so the body, now we're in day 2, the body tells the liver to do neoglucogenesis and dump a little bit more calories. That's the credit you can get, from the liver. So end of day 2, you're maximizing everything. You're depleting your reserve, and now you're in a crisis. And what happens after day 2 is the body's telling the cell, the CEO, knowing that there's no more money in the bank, turns into the company and say, we're going to restructure the company. We're going to fix everything going wrong to survive. Otherwise, we'll go bankrupt. So this is the same thing. On day 3, the body's telling the cells, and that's the power of the FMD, because every cell in the body lives on calories. So every cell is engaged now. And every cell is under this existential threat of fasting. And the body's telling them, you gotta rejuvenate. You're gonna first use the debris, the organelles, do autophagy, what we call autophagy, cellular rejuvenation. And the labs that discovered the autophagy process won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016. The 2016 Nobel Prize was on autophagy, which again happens on day 3 of fasting. everyone who thought intermittent fasting gets you into autophagy the first 16 hours doesn't happen. Happens on day 3. You still have enough reserve. If you skip your breakfast, you're not in a crisis to rejuvenate the cells. That's one of the biggest myths that we need to disrupt here in fasting. There's no autophagy if you skip breakfast. You still have a lot of fat, a lot of glycogen, and the liver is, full of calories to dump those. So day 3 is the cells are rejuvenating. Now, the longer you go as a CEO, you restructure the company, and now you're gonna, unfortunately, take deeper structural changes. You're gonna let some people go. You're gonna take a deeper intervention. This is what we see on day 5 of fasting. The body is killing senescent cells, saying, I cannot feed. The triage started to happen, right? I gotta get rid now structurally of cells. The cell that's old, not consuming calories, but not doing its job, the body sends it to apoptosis. And we see a lot of senescent cells now dying, and the body pushing the younger stem cells because they do a much more cost-effective, accurate word to. So you're having the first 2 days, you lost a lot of weight, fat preferential, you rejuvenated the cells of the body, and you a little bit touched on restructuring, on getting rid of older pro-aging, pro-inflammatory senescent cells, and you're pushing the younger cells to take over. This
Like
transformation.
5 days.
Sorry?
Why you structured with 5 days? Why not
longer you
7
bankrupt.
days?
The longer you go, now you bankrupt, right? If the CEO at the end of the day you started, the cost is much higher than the benefits. When you cross 5 days, day 6, day 7, we only do day 6 and day 7 for autoimmunity because we want that last phase where the body's getting rid of the T cells doing the attack and bringing new naive immune cells. They're not sensitized to do the attack. So in autoimmune health conditions, we go 5 to 7 days, but in everything else, we just do 5 days because you don't want to bankrupt the company. You want to come to that CEO and say, okay, now you're structured, you're sitting on a beautiful, cost-effective, lean, mean, good machine. I'm going to give you back your money so that you flourish in the right sense. And that's exactly what it is after day 5, you go back to your normal nutrition. And now you're nourishing a very cost-effective body that has lost fat, has maintained its metabolic rate. That's very important to talk about maintaining muscle with the FMD. This is one of probably the most important benefits. You only cut fat, you don't compromise muscle when you do the FMD, because fasting is a stress. The difference between, I'm always asked what's the difference between calorie restriction and FMD? Calorie restriction, you're just depleting, you slow down metabolism. Also the GLP-1, by the way, right? So you lose muscle, you lose fat on calorie restriction or GLP-1s. And therefore, when you stop, you pick up fat, you pick up what you eat back in fat because you slow down your metabolism, you slow down the muscle mass. And this is why chronic diets and the GLP-1, when you stop them, you kind of feel that you went back to square zero. Fasting is very different. It's a stress, and the stress hormone response, part of it is growth hormone. When you do ProLon, growth hormone goes up. It's telling the muscle to grow. Water fasting, there's no nutrients. So water fasting, you lose muscle. Why we have the FMD? Because there are nutrients. You're nourishing the muscles with proteins and carbs while the muscle is rejuvenating with autophagy under the growth signals of growth hormone. So we showed in multiple randomized clinical trials that muscle function and relative mass is protected with the FMD. That's very big for diabetes and pre-diabetes, obviously.
How about have you seen on the difference between male and female? Some study shows that like prolonged fasting, like Ramadan fasting, for female, they do not respond as much as well as to male. Have you seen that in your studies, the difference between gender?
No, because again, it's the fasting with food. You're right. On water fast, as I mentioned, water fasting is as beneficial as has side effects. And women, definitely, even their menstruation cycle is impacted by water fasting, right? So because it just perturbates with the entire reproductive and growth versus you're sending a signal with fasting of hibernation, while actually there's a growth of an ovule and ovulation happening and spiking of and playing with the hormones. With the fasting mimicking diet, again, ProLon is the name of the product. We've used it on different, both genders, age 20 to 70, and we never had any official reports or any data that was gender split and showing differential gender response. Now, the response is more related to the starting point of age and BMI, right? If you have a high BMI, you have a lot of reserve, you have a slow metabolic rate, you're not very active, you have a lot of reserve. It's gonna take you 3 to 4 days to get into full autophagy. If you're skinny, you have a high metabolic rate, you're very active, then you get into autophagy on midday 2. You don't need a full 3 to 4 days. So the starting point is the level of benefit a little bit, or getting into autophagy is a little bit different for people. A lot of folks ask me, how come it's the same formulation that you're selling for any then BMI or any? Because it's self corrects. If you go deeper into lower calorie, strong fasting mimicking to get a person that is high BMI or overweight, to get them fast into autophagy, they're not going to comply, and it's risky for them. Right? The opposite is true. If you want to delay a skinny person getting into office, you get it day 3, they're benefiting less. They actually don't need to lose the weight, and they need to rejuvenate the cells versus losing the weight. So we see in fasting is so existential. So when we started testing, all the way from flea to mice to human, it's an existential response that we see in every species. Because every species, including us, for hundreds of thousands of years we were on this planet, there was not always food, especially in the wintertime. And the epigenetic read from fasting is so existential that it doesn't depend on always the age and the BMI. Just the benefit and the expression of it varies a little bit, but it's such an existential touch on the epigenetic read that we see the benefits across age and BMI.
Beautiful. How do you specify between, for example, Alzheimer's or heart disease or diabetes? What are the difference ProLon? How do you select one compared to the other one?
Yeah, so we specialize because every system has a little bit of a different preferential. So when you go on the brain and a brain condition or neurodegenerative condition or nervous system related, if you want, health condition, the nervous system, so dementia and Alzheimer's, you're dealing with a patient who is older on average, and you don't want to get them into a severe depletion. The fasting mimicking diet for Alzheimer's that we have is 1,200 calories to 1,400 calories. You go a little bit more on the ketogenic side because the brain loves the ketones and it helps, versus on cancer, for example, patients with cancer, we have trials. We have around 6 trials actually testing the fasting mimicking diet before chemotherapy. And the goal is to help the system, help the normal. So for those who don't know, chemo hits every cell replicating in the body. It's a weapon of mass destruction of mitosis, right? Whatever cell is replicating is why you lose hair fast, you lose white blood cells fast, they replicate, So when you do fasting before chemo, the normal cells of the body, they hibernate. They're not replicating because there's no growth factor to replicate. There's no food, right? So you hibernate the normal cells. When chemo comes in, it's only cancer. This is the definition of cancer. Doesn't know how to stop, keeps going. Cancer gets impacted, and you're protecting the normal cells of the body. That's benefit number 1. Benefit number 2, you're rejuvenating immune system, so you get a better immune attack on the cancer, and we've shown that on pathology reads. And number 3 is, cancer cure rate is low because or lower than hoped for, wished for, because cancer ends up resisting to chemo. When you fast a cancer, you're de-equipping the adjustment of the cancer, right? The cancer doesn't have all what it needs in macros and a growth push to go and escape. So we see that cancer is less powerful in escaping and creating resistance and versus chemo. So these are the 3. So for cancer, for example, because we want to starve cancer, because we want to quickly protect the normal cells and take them off mitosis very fast, we actually do a lower calorie, stronger, deeper fast on the FMD. So we adjust it towards that. So yes, there is adjustments that we do versus systems. We call ProLon the product that we sell for longevity in the market. And the diabetes one is called Longevity Health for Nutra Health for diabetes, Nutra Health for cancer, and Nutra Health for other health conditions. We adjust the FMD for those.
That's a great segue. And I've been following some of your research, and Yeah, couple of things caught my attention. One was the increase in the biological age, and I know it's a small study, but I thought that was really interesting. If you could comment on that, and also some of the drop in hemoglobin A1C that you observed in pre-diabetic patients, that was also kind of fascinating.
Well, as I mentioned, we developed the FMD for aging, the bioage, again, as a preventative measure. That was a big purpose of ProLon. We called it ProLon for promoting health and longevity, promoting longevity, ProLon product. And the goal was, how can we, through resetting metabolism, obviously, we talked about we talked about improving metabolic markers, but mostly on the cells. And now we have a full randomized clinical trial showing a spike in autophagy with ProLon. So we know we are doing autophagy in the cells big time. And so then we use the only longitudinal study that we know of today is the NHANGE study, sponsored by U.S. government over 20 years now, and they're following people for 20 years, and some of them died, some of them have cancer, some of them have Alzheimer's. So Yale and USC came together and they put a bioage formula, a bioage score, showing that at each age, whatever your metabolic markers look like, they will tell you what's your biological age. So you're 55, but your blood markers look like this. Therefore, your bioage is like this, and therefore, this is your risk of developing these health conditions. So then we plugged the ProLon into the equation to show the benefits on bioage, and it's showing if you do 3 ProLons, you're again, this is 5 days a month. You can do it month 1, month 2, month 3, 5 days, 25 days, you go back to your food. 5 days on month 2, you go back to your food. 5 days on month 3, you go back to your food. And we're showing that you reduce the bioage by 2.5 years when you do 3 ProLons and within this regimen. So showing the autophagy, the rejuvenation in the cells. And if you do it between age 50 and 70 every year, just 3 times. So we're asking people here, whomever is listening to us, and I did say, hopefully we're going to change somebody's life. I really believe that if you do 3 ProLons per year, at least do 3, but if you do it per year, just give us 15 days out of the full year. At least we're getting your cells rejuvenated. We're getting your metabolism reset. And if you do it between age 50 and 70 every year, we're showing that you plateau at 11.5 years of bioage reduction.
Within 20 years?
In 20 years. So 2.5 the first year, but then the return curves at 11.5 bioage years. So
how many years do you have studies on that? I know you guys been on it for a while. So how many years that you have been following some of this patient?
Well, we have 23 years of clinical trials, but the longest we followed was 1 year on the per clinical trial, because the budget is huge. But we plugged the results of that into the 20-year study that the government has sponsored. So it's a bioage score. We're not here to promise people you're going to live long, or we're adding 10 years to your life. It's a biostatistic formulation of bioage score, but based on a factual longevity study that the government is doing. That's the closest statistically that we can get, but we haven't followed people for a long period and see what happens. The cost is in tens, if not hundreds of millions for us to do that. We'd love to do it, though.
There was a blog, I believe that was recently published. I saw it just a couple weeks ago about comparing FMD to Ozempic. I thought that was kind of interesting. Could you comment on that a little bit?
Very interesting, because today I was talking with a key opinion leader, and he said that's the healthy GLP-1. They said, I call ProLon the healthy GLP-1, because the GLP-1s are helping a lot of people lose weight fast, right? And there's a lot of benefits to do that. On the flip side, like every drug, when you work on one thing, you create side effects. And the major side effects of Ozempic and the GLP-1s is, at the end of the day, muscle loss. 25 to 30% of the weight loss is muscle driven. So it creates an addiction. Like every time you stop it one day, and then what you eat after that, because you lost a lot of muscle and your metabolic rate decreased, whatever you eat, a lot of Ozempic patients are like, I stopped it. I eat less, but then I gain back the weight very fast, because the ability for the engine to burn the carb, i.e. the muscle and the metabolic rate, is very low, and therefore you go back to where you started from. That's the major side effect. I think the pharma companies are trying to develop now a new version that is coupled with a muscle protector, but we'll see. It'll be another biochemical, again, you can go with drug after drug after drug, but it'll be effects and side effects. Number two, obviously, as we've seen in the clinical trials, there's an increase in risk for cancer and other conditions. So on the flip side, the fasting mimicking diet and ProLon, you're bringing a natural intervention. Fasting is not new. What we do the last 40 years of our life is new, which is eating all the time and ordering Uber Eats late at night. This is new. We as humans lived in a feeding and fasting cycles like nature. You have the summer where you store a lot of food and you store fat and then the excess, and then in the winter you use that excess. So like everything in life, there are cycles. We lost these cycles. We eat all the time, therefore we increase in obesity and cancer and Alzheimer's and autoimmune and every other chronic condition is increasing in our lifestyle. And so bringing a healthy, natural intervention back, fasting, we're mitigating its side effects naturally with plant-based ProLon. The FMD is, gluten-free, non-GMO, plant-based. There's nothing chemically added or genetically modified. It's actually high premium ingredients, all plant-based. Even the supplements there are 100% vegan, including the excipient. We took us decades and millions of dollars, tens of millions to get here. So natural intervention mitigated with a natural food. Basically what we're telling you, instead of eating whatever food over 5 days, buy our ProLon box, eat food plant-based from our ProLon box. It will help you lose the weight. It will help protect your muscle and it will help rejuvenate your cells.
And these are mostly protein based. What's that? Vegetable product or
healthy fats. There's a lot of high-end nuts, macadamia, almonds, etc. So you still have fats, plant-based source of proteins, and plant-based sources of carbs, complex carbs.
Oh, perfect. That's great. And how do you preserve it to last long time? What is the? You don't add no additive, no preservatives, I assume. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I learned so much coming from the medical field to nutrition. I didn't know anything about nutrition production, but everything I thought about, you have to add additives. Healthy food doesn't taste good. These are all myth.
But these are modern things. But the old time, I'm come from a small village. We preserve food for the whole winter without any, just basic stuff.
80% of what we've learned in the last 30 years from nutrition companies is driven by business and decreasing their costs and increasing their margins. They're just, it is, and I can talk, this is something I'm passionate about because I learned so much and I struggled so much because when we went to produce our products, not just the FMD, we have a longevity protein drink, we have a longevity spread. Our mission is to replace your food with longevity food, right? And clean formulation of healthy ingredients that is pro-longevity. This is our mission. This is why we're called L-Nutra, L longevity dash through nutrition. Our goal is to replace what we eat today with healthy food. And I learned so much. And I used to think it's either a salad or unhealthy food. And it's just the opposite. But healthy fats that taste so good, better than French fries. So fat tastes great. This is why when you fry anything, it tastes great. But cheap fat is frying fries and chicken. Expensive fat is macadamia, derived out of almonds and macadamia, and they don't want to use it, right? We use it, but it tastes unbelievable, right? We have a longevity spread. It's a chocolate. It's like a Nutella or a peanut butter jar, but it's 74% almonds and a little bit of cocoa. It's the opposite of any chocolate you buy. Typically, it's sugar, buttermilk, a tiny little bit of almonds or hazelnut, just to show you the beautiful picture because they're expensive. And sugar, right? This is how a Nutella or a peanut butter, but ours is 74% almonds, and we bring them from the Apulian Mountains in Europe and Italy, where the highest concentration of centenarians is in Europe. So it's a longevity zone, and we manufacture it there, and it tastes better than any Nutella or peanut butter because it has the healthy true fats. They're expensive, but they're not like the cheap sugar and the cheap, butter that they use there. Anything could be formulated tastes fantastic. It's just going to cost more because it's going to come from true healthy sources. This is what we're about, and this is what we're trying to transform people's life with.
So the L spread is really good. I have no, and as everyone knows, I have no financial relationship at all with L Nutra, but I've just been using it. It's just a very good product. And to clarify, it's not part of the FMD. It's a separate thing, but it's a great little. If you want something sweet, just a little. So it's like Nutella, I guess. It's kind of a fancy Nutella, I guess is the best way to describe it. And I've just finished 3 months of the 3 months of the sequential FMD. I actually felt like on day 4 I could actually eliminate some of the food. I didn't because it's part of the protocol, but I felt I didn't need all the food that I was provided with.
Yeah. Well, and yes, we're talking about products. We're 3 doctors. I don't want people to perceive we're pushing anything on them, but I want to mention something. The founder, Valter Longo of L Nutra and the ProLon, he owns almost half of the company, and it's all pre-donated. He takes nothing out of the company, so no salary, no financial benefits, and he donates all his shares to the Create Cures Foundation. So we're not only here sitting and showing the first ever true science behind food, and again, 40 clinical trials. I dare anyone to bring any food formulation that has 10, not 40. And we're not only here showing people how we can bring food as medicine, food as longevity, but we're reinvesting this into research and development, and we're donating to foundations for people to access healthcare. So this is what drove me to be very also pushy here and be confident in what I'm saying. The science is behind me and the mission is in front of me.
Great. Overall, what are your, we listen a lot of beautiful pros. Is there any cons to your experience? Anything that, as everything has, we go up and down, and that's one question. Secondly, would you see the future of longevity in 10, 15 years? So, because, you're comparing this food industry, the stress and all of that. So like you see your points on those 2 points.
Yeah. So the side effects or the limitation or who should not do ProLon or the 5-day fasting mimicking diet is a little bit similar to fasting. So if you're too skinny, if your BMI is below 18.5, you don't want to go and fast on top of that. If you have allergies to the ingredients, obviously, like every food, if you have allergies to the ingredients, if you're a lactating or a pregnant mother, you're growing, you have to produce, you don't want to fast at that time. And if you're, above age 70, 75, 80, definitely you're starting developing multiple conditions. You should definitely talk to your doctor first before you do ProLon. We've tested ProLon between age 20 and 70 in a safe way. And if you're above that age, definitely talk to your doctor to see if you're eligible and you can do it, and if there's any needs, adjustment need on medication, etc.
How about type 1 diabetes? I know for type 2, it sounds like it's great. So how about type 1?
Well, that's unfortunately, we don't have enough funds to test on type 1 because Harvard is ready to test with us. We have done a mice trial where we've shown to destroy the pancreas of the mice, induced like a full-blown type 1. And through the cycles of fasting mimicking diet, the pancreas went back and secreted insulin and glucose dropped back to normal. So we have a very, very big paper in Cell on preclinical trial. It might happen in humans, might not. It's we're either gonna wait up until we make profits and we invest into it, or some big donor that loves to support the type 1 diabetes. We would love to do this trial. A big team at Harvard wants to partner with us on it, but we haven't done that. This is one of the wish list. Yeah. Your second question was about how I see the future of longevity. I divide all interventions into technology, into longevity, into 2. There's the give back humanity what it was stolen and get it back to its potential. So food everyday marketing, I think we lost 10 years because we eat all the time and we eat unhealthy food, and this is where fasting fits, right? Eat healthy ingredients, exercise, stress, sleep, stress less, sleep better, social capital, becoming humans of stresses, etc. Giving and receiving love is very important for longevity. So there are interventions that within the natural way that can help us to reach our potential naturally of longevity. This is one category. And as you have another category that's trying to use medicine to take us to artificial a bit to the next level. And that industry is promising. We haven't seen any human trial. We hear the NAD, we have the NMN. There's a lot of or Repalogs or the metformin. And I believe maybe the metformin actually could be the first and maybe also the NSAIDs. We don't know about that. When we start developing inflammation at later stage of life can slow down the process. We don't know, but there's a lot of promising science over there. We have to be cautious because everything that works on one receptor or one thing has side effects. Longevity is tricky because you're going to have to start when you're healthy and you're inducing side effects on a person that's healthy so that hopefully that person lives longer. So the biggest key there is how can we find something that's doesn't have side effects, has mass intervention on the cells and help you, or otherwise you want to bear some short-term side effects but have a max hyperbolic longevity in the future. This is the moonshot, and a lot of big billionaires are putting money behind that moonshot. We haven't seen any human data yet. Awaiting that, we have to advocate to policy to do what we can do today in a healthy way: nutrition and fasting, exercise, less stress, better sleep, and better social capital.
Beautiful. What do you think of the ancient spices and turmeric and all that? That's where I come from, and when I travel around the world. So, and it's little by little getting incorporated to the Western diet, but not as much. What's your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, because our diet is so deviated today that you need turmeric, is known for its inflammation. Yeah, and it decreases. Yeah, and by the way, there's something we call inflammation, right? The older you get, the higher inflammation. A lot of people see that the CRP a little bit increase, the hsCRP, right? Because you're made of more H cells that trigger inflammation because they're we call them the zombie senescent cell. And that inflammation accelerates aging. Actually, aging started slow, and then once you have enough mass of those, it accelerates with time. And I think if we were eating a rich, dense, say pescatarian or flexitarian diet, you might not need those, or maybe you need. But the problem that we're eating today is calling for that supplementation. And yes, I do believe in the natural supplementation, especially for people who have some deficits because of what we eat and or genetic predisposition.
We had a question about insurance coverage. Are you working on that? Is that something? I think HSA is already available, but what about insurance coverage for this guy? You have to think that must be attractive to the payers.
So we're about to publish in a top journal. I'm not going to reveal up until it's out, but in one of the top, what we call them health economic and budget impact journals, meaning show the impact, not just health outcome, but cost savings, right? And this is where the drugs would love to be in that. Typically, a new drug helps a little bit with health outcomes with a lot of side effects and is very costly. We're actually showing now that if you have diabetes and you do the fasting mimicking diet every month and you pay the full cost of that program, and if you're on typically 2, 3 or more drugs, the payer breaks even financially as of month number 10, not year number 10, month number 10, because you're saving the use of medication, you're saving the side effects, and you're saving the hospitalization. So that's going to be a bigger. So we went to payers with this. I'm not going to name payers, but top 5 in the nation of insurances, and they're actually trialing with us now. They're doing their own calculation on few patients to see if because it's always good when you want to be reimbursed. Health outcomes, yes, but you got to be the FDA track. Traditional pill, there's a track for that. We're not a traditional FDA medicine. We're a nutri technology, not a biotechnology. But then if you show the health outcomes plus cost savings, you get the interest of the payers. So multiple payers, multiple health systems are talking to us and trialing already for reimbursement. We do have a subsidiary under us that produces medically tailored meals. This is like, think about a medically tailored HelloFresh. You have diabetes, I'll ship you your food for every day. Not FMD food, but everyday's food. That part is already reimbursed by CMS. And we have 119 health plans that cover us. It's called Nutrition for Longevity, or N4L, Nutrition for Longevity. N4Lhealth.com is where you can go get your food if you're on Medicaid, Medicare. And we're reimbursed for 32 health conditions. obesity, hypertension, diabetes, cancer, there's 36 chronic disease where 32 out of 36 reimbursed already.
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation. Would you like to add anything else that we didn't cover?
And I just have a quick question. Before, Adam, what I have to ask, what do you eat? Do you use the fasting FMD?
For sure. I've been advisor to Nutra between 2013 and 2016, and then I became CEO at 2016 till today. And I actually, I'm blanking if I'm on 27 or 28th cycle. There's few people ahead of me, and they're doctors. So the thing that I'm mostly proud of is the first actually investors in Nutra, the first investors, the first supporters, and the highest compliant consumers are physicians. Never seen, because you know how we are. Actually, we don't like to apply things that we prescribe or be on diets, etc. But it's a 5-day nutrition, and the science behind it is very, very strong. And there's nothing that you cannot do in 5 days. So it fits within the workflow of busy, stressful doctor, and it's, you know. But I know of at least one doctor who crossed 30 ProLon, so I know I'm not in the top, but yeah. And what I eat in between, you know, I'm mainly a flexitarian, mainly pescatarian, so plant-based, and I eat fish as a main source of protein. I do have meat very rarely, maybe twice a month. And I like our longevity protein. What I do in the morning is a fast bar to prolong the overnight, you know, fat burning. So I do fast bar, and then I have my coffee after with a little bit of protein as a snack for lunch, the L protein, and then have my dinner, a plant-based pescatarian one.
Great. Well, thank you. And is there anything, Dr. Antoun, that you'd like to add? And how can our listeners find you?
I think what I want to conclude with is, if anything, if you want to take one conclusion out of all this discussion, is it's all about your inner age. If you're healthy and young from the inside, you're a little bit away from the onset of your next big chronic disease because they're age related. One way today, if you want to do that, is do 3 ProLons per year, 15 days. That's all we want from you. 5 days, even do it like trimester 1, trimester 2, trimester 3, 1 in every trimester. There's nothing we know of today that can reset metabolism and the bio age of a cell. This very powerful combination. It's natural, plant-based. Is, if anything, I would recommend for people who are eligible, who want to try it, to try it. So if they want to find more about ProLon, you go to prolonlife.com, and there's the ProLon 5 days and other products. If you want to read about the company that produces ProLon, the company is called Nutra, l-nutra.com, longevity-through-nutrition.com. If you want to follow me personally, I'm at Dr. Joseph Antoun across all handles, and mostly active on LinkedIn under the same name.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you very much. Thank you.